Today's guest on the All In podcast, we have Wade Houston, who went from being dead broke in 2019 with no job, $100,000 in debt, to now just 5 years later, becoming a millionaire, living in Miami, and living the life you only see on TV.
Hey, everything that I wanted stood up and went got it. Don't think I'm the hottest shit, watch how I pop. Wasn't good with the green, off the rocks, I made profit, start rapping now. I done took off like a rock.
Great to have you on the podcast, Wade.
Thanks for having me, Alex. Thanks for the intro, brother.
What's the Miami lifestyle look like, and what does your day in the life look like in Miami?
Well, there's two different Miami lifestyles. There could be more than two different lifestyles, but I've lived two different lifestyles in Miami. There's definitely the entertainment, party, nightlife Miami. And when I first moved down here, I was sucked into that. I was going out to the clubs until 5, 6 a.m. You know, I was waking up exhausted, hungover, had done a lot of drugs, and I would have to, go back to work. And everything was very superficial. I was hanging around with a lot of people that were concerned with partying and looking like they were rich, rather than people that were actually developing themselves as human beings. And it's very easy to get sucked into that nightlife, entertainment, superficial Miami. Luckily, I was able to hit rock bottom, and I had to change everything about myself, including the places that I went and the people that I hung around with. And so I stopped going to nightclubs. I stopped going out late. I stopped partying. I stopped hanging out with people that were, doing those types of things. And so I changed my entire life, and now the Miami lifestyle that we live is way different, as you can see. And people will often say, like, wow, you guys go to dinner at 6 p.m. instead of 10 p.m. You charter boats at 7 a.m. instead of sunset. You live this completely different life, and it's still incredibly fun. We're incredibly active. No matter where we go in the world, whether we're here in Miami or traveling, we still follow the exact same blueprint. And that is waking up early and doing breathwork, reading, meditation, and working out. And as a result of that, we live a positive, healthy life all day that doesn't involve drugs, alcohol, partying, or anything superficial.
A lot of times people just think that there's just one Miami lifestyle, but you totally flipped the book on that.
So if you go to the gyms here in Miami, right? If you go to Powerhouse, if you go to Boxer, if you go to Elevation, you're going to find crazy cars, and you're going to find really positive, healthy, motivated people that are promoting a business online, doing something in health, wellness, business, trading, and they've created an offer to actually help people. People always say, oh, Miami's full of scammers. It's like, yeah, okay, you can say that and think that because there are a lot of scammers online, but in the circles that I hang around with, there are people with thousands of testimonials that are creating real value for others and making millions of dollars a year. So, think all you want, but there's also another side of Miami of super, super successful people here that are all self-made.
How much do you think you need to make to be able to live in Miami?
I mean, dude, if you're making less than 200 grand a year, it's difficult to live any sort of decent life. When you start making over 300, you can live decently here, and at 500, you have a nice life in Miami. But yeah, less than 200 is hard to do much, to be honest with you.
Gotcha. Well, what would you tell the person who's looking to move out there, but they are, making less than $10,000 a month? Would you recommend them to go because they want to expand their circle, or would you just say, keep on grinding where you're at?
No, do it. 100% move here, for sure. This was the best thing that I ever did. I wasn't making much money when I first moved down here, but it helped me develop myself as a person, and I ended up making connections with other people. Look, you can live in Miami, it's just going to be a little bit lonely, and you're going to constantly be looking at all of the really successful people, and if you compare yourself to them, then you'll get buried and you'll have to move somewhere else. But if you can just say, hey, I know that I'm in a period of sacrifice in my life, I'm grinding, I'm not spending money, I'm not going to crazy dinners, and I'm not comparing myself to other people, then move down here and start making connections, because it'll just catapult your success.
That rolls into my next question. What's it like to be surrounded by so much money? There's like Bugattis and Lamborghinis everywhere you look in Miami. So how is it like being surrounded by that?
In the early going, it can be intimidating, and it's definitely a blow to your ego, because you're like, wow, I'm just like the poor little kid on the block who's not making any money, and everybody's so rich here. But if you're surrounded by the right people that are not superficial, that understand that, success is about growth, it's about, changing your mindset rather than the external, then you start to change the mindset around what that is, and it becomes very motivating. Instead of detrimental, it's like, hey, there's something to aspire to, and I'm going to get there. I don't need to compare myself to other people. We don't know their situation. We don't even know if they're happy. We don't know if they're healthy. We don't know if they're living a good life. We just know that they have money and flashy shit. They could be renting it. They could be unhealthy. They could have a terrible relationship, or they could have been given all that money. And I'll tell you this, I don't want to ever be given money. I want to develop my skill sets, my confidence, my ability to earn, so that ultimately I am somebody that can always make a ton of money, not just be handed money and then forever be, worried and ungrateful for my life.
How would you grow your network? How would you surround yourself with the right people, not the wrong crowd? How do you get intertwined into that community of successful people?
Yeah, so join a gym like Elevation, Boxer, or Powerhouse. And when you do so, just try and be friendly with other people that are there. Like quick conversations. You might make a nice little comment about them, something they're wearing, something they're doing, and then connect with them on Instagram, follow them. And then send them a message. Nice to meet you. I love your content, whatever it is. And connect with as many people as humanly possible at one of those 3 gyms. Then spend some time in places where a lot of these successful people are. So that's like in the epicenter of Brickell, there's a little cafe called Ojo de Agua. It's not crazy expensive. It might be $20 for a bowl each time. Go and sit there, have your coffee and your breakfast. And when there's cool people around, like light up into little conversations. Join a church. There's a massive church down here called VU Church. And there's a lot, and get involved, start to give back, and you'll meet very successful, positive, motivated people there as well. And then do some other things like, maybe some yoga, try like a Pilates, start to get involved in events. So look for, event postings around Miami, and you'll see like sound healing and meditation events and yoga, and just get around other positive, healthy, people, because everybody who's successful, 99% of the people who are successful are also concerned with their health, with fitness, with nutrition, with spirituality, with mindset. And so do other things that are around that, and you'll attract other people that are successful into your circle.
I love that. So pretty much just getting out of your comfort zone and willing to explore the unknown to be able to find those connections.
Totally.
What is the best part about being rich?
Not having to worry about this stupid, small little shit. Not doing the dishes, not doing the laundry. I don't worry about valet. I don't worry about the check when it comes. I don't worry about how much my Uber costs. Like, honestly, it's not like having some crazy car. It's not, okay, yes, the ocean view is pretty nice. Okay, I'll give you that. Like, yeah, like living up here is pretty sick. But it's really like day to day, the fact that I just don't have to worry about all the little shit, like that's probably the biggest thing, I think. And dude, to be able to every single day eat whatever the fuck I want, like no matter how expensive it is, for me, that's a really, really nice feeling. It's, and travel too. I think that's really nice, is to be like, what? We could spend 20, 30 bands on a trip and be fine, and that's a really blessed thing. I think your experiences that you get when you're rich are better than the material possessions that you ever have. You know what I mean? Like, if you asked me like 100 times out of 100 times, would you rather go back to Monaco or get a Rolls Royce? I would go back to Monaco, Like,
how did, yeah.
Me going to Monaco delayed the ghosts, Like, bro, I could easily right now have put that 30 racks down on a ghost and then just finance the rest of a ghost. But instead, I'm going to have to wait 2 months, and I'll just have an extra 30 racks laying around, and I'll get the ghost then. So I delayed my gratification. But was that trip worth it? 100 times out of 100 times, bro. The most magical experiences and bonds ever from that trip.
I love it. And dude, I know people are hearing this and they're like, what, $30,000 for a trip? So how did you make your money? And how are you able to spend $30,000 on a trip to Monaco?
Well, I developed a very unique skill set, which was, I started off as a sales guy, and then I got into sales management. What I became excellent at was the language that a salesperson or any client-facing person uses to convince someone to buy a product. And so I started teaching salespeople, the front office coordinator, my operations manager, and the doctors how to speak about medicine in such a simple way that they were just naturally moving patients into the solution and spending more money. And so what I realized was I could go into any company and just change the language that they use to make better analogies and make the language more simple, and they would close more deals. And so as a result of that, I had this unique skill set that doctors started to want to hire me, and they wanted me to consult for them. Obviously, I had an amazing resume with going from scaling health gains from 4 million to 12 million and then going to 10x and scaling from 9 to 50. But I had accumulated so many doctors in my network that when I left and told them all, hey, I'm starting a healthcare consultancy, I immediately had 6 or 7 people reach out to me and say, we want to hire you for consultancy on sales, marketing, and operations, and obviously, revenue growth. And so, I had one client paying me $25 a month. I had 5 other clients paying me $10K a month. And so
how are you able to charge that much though? Is it just because of your experience? And
Okay. My experience and my skill set was like, hey, I had operated companies and I had grown them so rapidly. And when I speak to somebody, the major key was this. Whenever I would meet with somebody, I'm very good at analyzing their problems. So a doctor would come to me and they would say, hey, we're considering hiring a consultant. We're having a hard time scaling. And I would say, okay, what exactly do you offer? And they would tell me the 3 or 4 bread and butters. And I would say, how much revenue are you driving in each product or service? And they would say, well, we don't actually know. And I'll say, okay, that's really important. That's going to be a key factor. We'll have to figure that out. How do you report your revenue? Do you have a system or a dashboard? Well, it's kind of sloppy. Okay, that's the next thing we're going to have to do. Because if we don't have the data, it's going to be very hard to make decisions. We're kind of shooting blind, right? They'd be like, yeah, okay. I say, okay, well, how are you getting new clients right now? And they would say, well, we're using Marketing Mary over here. She's running some Facebook ads. And I'll say, okay, do you know what your return on ad spend is? And they'd be like, what's that? And I'll be like, okay, this is a very important metric to help us determine, are we getting a return on our investment, and where should we spend more money on what kind of marketing? They'd be like, okay. I'll say, okay, and who's your buyer persona? Who do you usually sell to? And they'd be like, oh, we sell to like 40 to 70-year-olds. And I'll be like, okay, men or women? Both. Okay, where do they live? And then I would drill down and ask them a bunch of questions, and they'd be like, wow, I guess we don't exactly know who our buyer is. And I'll be like, yeah, this is imperative. This is where we'll start. Because if we don't know exactly who we're selling to, it's going to be very hard to target them with where they buy, what social channel we find them on, what the messaging is, so on and so forth. And I would just walk through and I would say, what's your structure? How many employees do you have? What's your total revenue? And then I would say, do you know what your revenue per employee is? And they would be like, well, yeah, let's see, we did $1 million last year, 5 employees, $200,000 per employee. And I would say, okay, that's great. Now, in order to be profitable, we have to be above $350,000 per employee in revenue. And they'd be like, wow, how do you know this? And I'll be like, this is what I do. And then so, dude, just in like 5 minutes of asking them questions, they're like, holy fuck, we have no idea what we're doing. This guy just unbuttoned our fucking pants and dropped our pants, and like we have no idea what we're doing. And obviously he does. And bro, I would never tell anyone anything. I would never say, you should do this, you should do that. I would just say a question. They would tell me they don't know. And I would say, that's an important metric. And then I would say, this is where we'll start. And then on the next one, I'd say, this is the next thing that we'll do. And then on the third thing, I would say, this is exactly how I help my clients. Luckily, most doctors are just like you. They have no idea. And what I'll do is I'll come in and I'll take an analysis of each sector of your business, marketing, sales, operations, finance, and technology, and people. And then we're going to create a roadmap for you to be able to scale. More importantly, what I'm going to help you do is let's figure out your revenue goal for next year, 3 years, 5 years, and when do you want to exit this company and how much do you want to sell it for? And if you have a desire to sell this company, we're going to need to put some structures into place so that someone could buy this company without you, the doctor, or you, the owner, being present. present. And that's very difficult to do unless you have someone with the business acumen that I have to be able to do this. So I usually charge $50K a month, but look, I'll do it for $10K a month. And they'd be like, okay, where can I do it? Where can I do it? That's it.
How did you learn those skills? Like, how did you learn those high income skills like sales, marketing, operations, being able to be good at structure?
All of them came from the beginning of COVID when I went to this Health Gains, this hormone clinic, through the next, so it was a total of 2.5 years from when I started at that company to when I left 10X. So I was at the first company 1.5 years and then 10X a year. And during those 2.5 years, bro, when I tell you, I did not fucking do anything with my life. No party, no going out, no dinners, no nothing. Bro, Saturday morning, I would meet with my mentor. I would come back home. I would put a podcast on and I would go on a bike ride for 1.5 hours. I'd listen to the podcast. I'd come back. I'd read. I'd write a business plan. I'd research. And then I'd do a little bit of cardio and work out. And then I'd watch YouTube at night. And I'd eat fucking dinner by myself and I'd sit in front of the TV and I'd watch YouTube. 15-hour days every single day of just getting all these skill sets in. I mean, dude, a psycho for 2.5 years. Like, my life did not look like it looks today. You would never see me on Instagram flexing. You would never see me with all these people. I wasn't in that position. I was in a position of sacrifice. And this is what I always tell people, like, you got to just go all motherfucking in on yourself. And I was developing my mindset and my skill set through that period of time. Obviously, the mentorship helped me tremendously because Steve was able to point me in the direction each step along the way. So like, okay, I became a sales manager. He said, read this book, watch these YouTubes, listen to this podcast. And then I would also do my own research. And then I started integrating marketing, and he would be like, and he has a marketing background also, and he'd be like, here's what you should do with this. And then I had other marketing resources that I would seek and said, what books should I read? And then now I need to learn about managing people. So I read Traction and I would tell people what I was doing also. Anybody who was at the next level, when they would ask me what I was doing, I would tell them, I just took over this hormone clinic, I became the sales manager, and now I just took over marketing. So I'm just trying to figure out how to integrate sales and marketing. Just like that. I would tell them, I'm trying to figure out how to do this. I wouldn't go on and on and on, but just because they clearly saw, wow, this kid is competent, he became a sales manager, now he's trying to figure out marketing. If they had any resource for me, I would take it. They would be like, have you ever read the book They Ask You Answer? And I'd be like, no, give it to me, anything. And whenever everyone was like, I have a suggestion for you, I'd be like, yeah, give it to me. And I would just fucking read it, do it.
Pretty much just taking action on whatever people in the place that you wanted to be would give you.
And I would share, this is, I think, a really big key. A lot of people are worried about sharing their next move with somebody, right? Because they're like, well, I don't want to be judged for like if I fail or what I do. And look, there's some validity to that in business. You don't necessarily want to talk to people too much about a change in your business before you launch it. That is true. But for me as a growing executive, when I was around people that were clearly successful, I had no problem telling them, yeah, man, I just moved in to take it over marketing and I'm just trying to figure it out. I'm trying to grow and scale this company and learn as much as possible about marketing right now. That's my focus. And I would tell everyone that with no shame. And that's what ended up giving me so much inbound, is I'm just not worried about telling people what I'm doing or learning or trying to figure out.
If somebody wanted to make $1 million, what would you recommend them to do?
Get online for sure. Learn how to persuade. So if your persuasion skills are not optimal, like read How to Win Friends and Influence People, Influenced by Robert Cialdini. Watch as much Jordan Belfort, Jeremy Lee Minor, Alex Hormozi, and Grant Cardone as humanly possible. Practice your speaking, your persuasion. Everywhere you go, see if you can get the name of the person and control the social situation at a restaurant, at a club, like at a supermarket. Anywhere you are, just start to be social in a way where you're like having control of the social situation. And then, dude, just get some form of high income skill out. I mean, persuasion is the first one. Sales is the first one. But learning selling online, whether it's e-com, whether it's some form of real estate, investing, learning about the social platforms, marketing, health and wellness, any trending industry that someone is authentically interested in, just learn as much as possible. Become an expert in one thing. So get your persuasion and sales skills to the top and become an expert in one thing, like one field, and just spend all your time doing that. That's really like the key to making a lot of money.
How does one convince themselves that what they're doing and what they're working on is worth it?
That's a great question. It's tough. That took me forever, right? I bounced job to job to job just to make money. All I ever did was like, okay, this is a good job. I can make more money doing this. Okay, I'm tired of being in an office. The next job needs to be remote and I need to make as much money. And then the next job, I need to have a path to grow and make exponentially more money. And that's all I ever did. And I was just like purposeless, and it wasn't fun, and I didn't like it. So I worked with my mentor, and I went through this, exercise of what are my skills, what's my interests, what's my experience, what's my purpose. And I put everything down on a piece of paper, and I identified like, hey, there's probably 2 or 3 different things that I could do that I would feel good about doing for the rest of my life. They align with who I am as a person. Like, I wanted to help people. I was interested in, helping people overcome problems. I liked health, wellness. I loved mindset, and I loved business. And so it was like, okay, these are my things that I really love. And the other one was fashion, which I didn't end up getting into. But so I had 4 things, and I had to narrow it down and say, is fashion going to help me, really make as positive, as big of an impact as I want and make as much money as I want within the next 10 years? Probably not. It's more of a long shot. Health and wellness, can I get into that industry? As long as I can break into it, yes. I then, that will always be on the forefront of people's minds. And it will continue to be more prevalent for people to take care of their health since we've had COVID and other health-related issues recently. So it was reflection. Asking God, please show me what you should have me do. Show me specific to my career what direction I should take. And then each day doing some meditation, speaking to my mentor, and writing down things that I thought I would like. And so it was a curated process.
Is that how you would recommend somebody find their zone of genius? Just self-reflection?
Yeah, lots of self-reflection. And I also asked my friends just to get their opinion and feedback. I went to like my 5 closest friends and said, yo, guys, just humor me. What do you think my best skill sets are? And if you were me, what kind of job would you consider doing? One of my friends was like, bro, you need your own TV show. Just fucking do everything in your power to find an agent and get a fucking TV show. And then another one was like, yeah, I could see you selling drugs again, but he meant like pharmaceutical drugs instead of real drugs, And then a couple other of them were like, you're a sales leader, bro. You're a sales leader. Like you managing salespeople in some capacity. Like that's what you're good at. And so I was like, okay, yeah, I am. And I started to form this thing of like, yeah, you know what? I am sort of, I like leading people. And that sort of helped me form some judgment as well.
How does somebody find their authentic voice and their authentic real self?
Well, whether you're getting online or just doing this in person, just generally speaking, you just got to practice. So it took me a while to develop exactly who I was and what I believe as a person. But over time, you start to realize there's only so many things that a human could be interested in improving, right? It's just money, relationship, health, physique, business, family, spirituality. There's not that much more that someone could really improve in their life. Like those are kind of like the key pillars. So we're just going to make sure that in each of those pillars I'm somewhat developed and that I'm well versed enough to be able to speak in it. And the more I speak to people about these subjects, the more I can absorb and use as my own knowledge. And so like Okay, I started spending more time like paying attention to the message at church and really absorbing the lecture so that I could understand some spirituality. And then I started reading scripture. And then I started asking my mentor, who is spiritual, how he talks to God. And then I started, absorbing some techniques for my spirituality. And with mindset, other people that had a bulletproof mindset, I would always ask them. Anytime I met someone who was clearly like disciplined and on their shit, I would be like, yo, what did you do for mindset? Or what practices did you do to strengthen your mindset? And I would just ask them, and then I would just absorb those and then read and research. Every step along the way, whatever someone was best at, I would just drain them of what they knew in that subject.
How do you develop a bulletproof mindset and a bulletproof body?
Well, it's really just the consistency. It's not like some max effort each day, because it doesn't matter how much effort you put into this. You're not going to change your body overnight. You're not going to change your mind overnight. It doesn't matter how much effort on any given day you put in. What matters is that you're consistently putting in the effort to work out every single day. And to change your body, you're also going to have to be concerned with the nutrition as well, right? You're going to have to have the right amount of protein intake and the right amount of carbs and fats to be able to achieve the goals that you're looking to achieve. So just the consistency in that will obviously compound. The same thing with your mind. Setting out to do what what you said you were going to do each day, making sure that you're priming your mind and your spirit, with prayer and meditation and some reading, and exercise will drastically help your mindset as well. But if you're consistently doing those things each day, your mind just starts to change. And if you're coupling that with, reading some books on mindset or watching some videos or having some mentorship or some feedback or being a part of a group that talks about mindset, now you're actually changing your mind through mental repetition, and you're opening your mind to new ways of thinking through the information that's coming in. So that's the way to do it, kind of two-part.
What's a cheat code now at 36 you wish you knew at 26?
How much time that I wasted talking to multiple girls, right? That my energy is a finite resource and that I only have so many hours during the day. And if I'm spending hours and hours talking to random people and random girls, I'm just drawing my ability, my energy, and my mental strength down to be able to achieve my goals. That was like the number one thing I wish I had known earlier. The next thing is being aware of the relationship that I have with myself. I was an extremely undisciplined person who I just did whatever I want. And I didn't realize how much that was hurting me. I didn't realize that by not keeping the promises I made to myself, by just doing whatever I wanted, by being lazy and undisciplined, I was actually diminishing my confidence, my momentum, my self-esteem, my clarity, my energy, and I never realized that. And so, I think for me, to be really honest with you, I've always had this crutch in my life, and it took me a long time to get rid of this crutch. My crutch is that no matter what happens, if I'm broke, addicted to drugs, in a bad situation, low on confidence, I can pull any girl I want. Like, it's just the easiest thing in the world to me to go out and be like, I'm going to get girls based on just who I am as a person, my personality, and how I look. And so I would always fall back on that crutch of like, I'm not making money, I'm addicted to drugs, my life sucks, but yeah, I can still get playmate level girls, so it's not that bad. And that shit held me back really for like my whole life. And I had to really work on that, of like, dude, my whole life is falling apart and I'm still thinking it's okay just because I can get hot girls. Like, what the fuck is that, So being aware, really being self-aware, and being open-minded to growth, to change, to accepting help from other people. I was fixed-minded my whole life. So those are some of the biggest like cheat codes, I would say.
If you were to go back like 18 to 25 or 26 years old, what are the things that you would focus on to compress that curve to success?
I would certainly eliminate all the losers that I was hanging out with, right? Like I would say like just eliminating the partying, the drugs, all the losers I was hanging out with. Look, at that time in my life, I wasn't capable. Like it would be very hard for me to go back and knock on the door and be like, hey buddy, like stop partying now. You know, I would even tell you to this day, even with my current perspective, if I went back in time, I'd be like, yeah, man, I got some time to like enjoy this part of my life. Just like give me a break, you know. Like I got a long life ahead of me. I like getting fucked up. But if I could go back, it would be like, dude, let's learn some stuff earlier on. Like instead of just thinking that, well, okay, this would be a major change. Even if I kept partying, if I had really gotten more dedicated to having a set morning routine and to focusing on building skills to make money and trying in entrepreneurship, I would have been way more successful a lot earlier. But instead, I was like, I'm a good salesman. I'll always just climb the corporate ladder and I'll always party on the weekends. And I didn't really dig in. I wasn't willing to fail. That's probably the number one biggest thing is like, I wish I had just tried more businesses earlier on. Seriously, you know, not like, yeah, I started a clothing company when I was younger, but I didn't take it serious. I wish I had tried more businesses and failed more because I would have catapulted my growth quicker that way.
How many businesses have you tried to get to this point?
I started off with a clothing company when I was like 21. Then Then we started wholesaling laptops. That was crazy. I used to buy 1,000 laptops at a time, just straight arbitrage, laptop arbitrage, and I would sell them to these companies called Newegg and BH Photo. And then Amazon became a thing, and the price fluctuation went all over the place, and we were out of business very quickly. But so then I was wholesaling laptops. I started the financial technologies company, supplement manufacturing, healthcare consultancy. 7.
Dang, yep. That's wild.
Yeah.
Do you think people need to fail a few businesses to be able to be successful eventually?
Yeah, for sure. I failed. I failed in 4 businesses before I had anything become successful. I've had 7 total businesses, but 4 of them failed. And then my 5th one was healthcare consultancy, which was easy because I had the skill set. It wasn't much of a business to set up. And then the next one was a supplement distribution company, which I crushed it in that. I'm not focusing on it anymore. And then coaching. But 4 failures, 4 complete flops. Yep.
What was the biggest thing that you learned from those failures that allowed you to have a successful business now?
Early on, it was like communication and emotional intelligence, because I would like my first business partner was my best friend, and we would just fight about everything, and I was so quick to judge everything we did. The laptop business taught me to never go into a business that wasn't growing, right? It was like a very static market, like an old school business. It was like, no. Make sure you're at least going into a business with growth potential. You know, not something that you could go out of business in 4 or 5 months. And I would say the other things that I learned were just really like having structure in a business is imperative. Being able to track the efficiency of your growth and having good communication will limit the amount of time you need to spend in a business. So structure and communication are imperative to growing a business.
I know life didn't always look like this for you. So take us through your story and the journey, what it took to get here, and what exactly happened on May 5th, 2019.
Yeah, so that's an interesting date. You know, that's when I hit rock bottom. I've had a long history of drug and alcohol addiction, and I stopped drinking about 12 years ago. I continued to do drugs and party. At the time when I stopped drinking, I think I was like 24, and I would come down to Miami, I would go to LA, and I would hang out in Mexico, and I would just bring a lot of drugs with me. And I was consistently partying and living this life. I was doing financial advising, so I was making enough money, but I was never really advancing in my career. I was very unfulfilled, and I was, like I said, always doing drugs. I had this bright idea in January of 2019 to move down to Miami. So I packed up all my shit. I drove down from Vermont to Miami. I got a shitty little apartment in the middle of the beach, $800 a month, no furniture, no cutlery, no silverware, no nothing, bro. I was using plastic silverware and Solo cups, and I was living on a mattress on the floor, and I was on the ground floor, so it was like this little cockroach-infested apartment. It had all these cockroach traps. I remember I used to bring girls back to this apartment. They would be like, no couch, no desk, no chairs, no table, like just a mattress on the floor. Like, what is wrong with you? And I was selling Land Rovers. I didn't want to do financial advising anymore, and I thought, hey, look, I don't know what I'm going to do for work. If I sell Land Rovers, I'll find a rich person who's got a job for me, and that was my thought process.
Why didn't you want to do financial advising anymore?
I was so burnt out by that job, I was managing a lot of my friends' money and people, that were close to me, that it left me feeling very isolated on an island. Like, I couldn't share how I was really feeling with anybody because I was worried that they were going to be concerned for my mental health and their money, and so the relationship changed with everyone that I had in my circle because I was now responsible for their money. And I also just wasn't in the best place mentally during that time. I was doing a lot of Xanax and smoking a lot of weed. Even though I was good with managing money and doing, financial advising, I hated it. I despised the job, and I had checked out years before that. So I was like, look, I'm not going to get back into that industry. I'll do something that's a little bit more fun where I can, meet somebody who's wealthy. And within 3 months of living in Miami, I'm partying every night, going to the clubs, blowing coke to stay up, doing other drugs, still not drinking. But I get to this point where one weekend, May 1st, I find myself at the SLS pool party. I'm with two of my buddies and 8 girls. And him and his girlfriend get into a fight. They leave. My other buddy leaves. And I'm left at the table with 6 girls. And they're all like, let's drink. Let's have some fun. And I'm like, I've done coke for 3 days straight. I got a scratchy, itchy throat. And remember, at this point, I haven't drank for years, 6 or 7 years. And I'm like, there's no way I'm drinking. But I sat down and I was just at my wit's end, dude. I was just like, man, all these drugs and all this Xanax and all this weed and all this coke, I just feel terrible. This girl poured me some Grey Goose and pineapple, and I just so happen to love pineapple juice. And I'm like, fine, fuck it, I'll take it. So I have a drink of the pineapple vodka, and it was on from there, bro. For 3 days straight, I just got blacked out every single day. I found myself at multiple different clubs. I left a club very late one night. I think it was a Thursday night. I call an Uber, the Uber cancels. I call another Uber, the Uber cancels. And I'm pretty fucked up. I remember my vision was a little blurry, and I look up, and there's this woman in the car, and she says to me, hey, you need a ride down the beach? And I'm like, yeah, I do, actually. I'd love a ride home. So I didn't tell her exactly where I live, but I accept the ride. I get in the car, and she's scooping out lines of blow, with her fingernail, and she's doing them in the car. And she says to me, do you want some? And I say, yeah. Well, she must have scooped a different bag, not her bag, and she gave me something that just, some sort of roofie or something that just put me out immediately. She stole my chain, my bracelet, my watch. I had a Rolex, and she left me with my phone and my wallet, thank God. But I woke up basically in the middle of the street. I couldn't stand up. I was so fucked up. I woke up 4 hours later. I end up ordering an Uber back to my apartment, and I wake up the next morning, and it was just the worst feeling I had ever felt in my life. And I'm someone who's had a lot of consequences. Kicked out of prep school, kicked out of college, 3 DUIs, 3 assault charges, followed by the feds on drug charges for trafficking. I've had a lot of issues in my life before this, but nothing ever made me feel as shitty as I did on this moment in time. I just felt this horrible hole in my chest, in my heart, of how the fuck did my life come to this? I grew up in a good family. I went to good schools. I was well educated. How did I end up getting robbed by hookers down here in Miami, and I'm in debt, my friends aren't talking to me, I'm a fucking loser, and I'm doing nothing with my life? And I just had this epiphany. It was just this white light moment. And I called my dad and I said, hey, Dad, I've been having some problems. My jewelry got stolen. I'm thinking about moving back home. Like, I don't know if this is for me. And he was like, look, it doesn't matter where you live. He's like, I think you got two options. Either you can bounce in and out of AA for the rest of your life and continue to be a fucking loser, or you can actually go to AA, complete the 12 steps, and maybe you'll have a chance at doing something great with your life. And it just hit me. I had been fighting it. I had been fighting help my whole life with my addiction and my drug issues. I had just tried to do it all on my own. And I said, okay, fine, fuck it. The very next day I walked into an AA meeting, and I went to an AA meeting every single day for the next year. More. I never missed one. I got a sponsor. I did the 12 steps. I got sponsees. I got commitments at a home group. My sponsor told me I had to pick up other alcoholics and addicts on the way to my meetings every Tuesday and Thursday. I had to get a commitment to bake cookies on Saturday nights at a young people's meeting. I did every fucking thing he told me, despite not wanting to do it. And as a result of doing this, I got sober and I stayed sober. And I started to change my mindset. And I started to reduce my ego. I started to look at my character defects. I started to look at my inefficiencies. And I started to work on myself. I stopped hanging out with the old people. I stopped going out. I started going to bed earlier. And then I started to get healthy in every realm. And within 4 months of being sober, I met my mentor. So now I'm on the path of having a sponsor and being in AA to get sober and create a spiritual relationship. And I got a mentor who started helping me with Stoic principles, Eastern philosophy, meditation, my mind, emotional intelligence, communication. And then we went business, and all the skills that I needed to be able to make more money and operate businesses. And I would meet with him every Saturday morning at 7 a.m.
How did you meet him, though?
I met him through a connection. Actually, there was a woman in AA, and she used to ask me every day, like, where are you from? What do you do? What's going on? How's everything going? And I would tell her my story, and she would say, you're very quiet here. You don't really interact or engage with that many people. And I said, Ann, can I be honest with you? And she said, yeah. I said, I just don't really vibe with these people. Like, I know I have a problem with my ego, but I'm way more intellectual and I have way more going for me than these other people in AA. And she was like, sweetie, you can't judge these people. Everybody in life has a different path. You just have to see what you can take from them and also what you can give to them, and you'll start to get sober. She said, but what do you want to do? And I told her my business aspirations and what I had done before. And she said, look, I'm going to write down 3 very successful business guys, on a piece of paper, and I'll let them know you're going to call, but that you're a good kid and that you have really good potential and you're just getting sober. And I said, oh, well, thank you very much. That's really kind of you. And so I did that, and I talked to this one guy. His name was Steve, who is my mentor. And it was just like, man, this dude's story was crazy, and we just vibed immediately. And he just said, hey, let's go. We'll go out for coffee. We can chat. You can tell me a little bit more. And he was like, look, I am very, very selective about who I mentor. I don't just mentor everyone. I don't have, a specifically open program for this. It's not like he promoted online. He was a very private guy. He was running a healthcare technologies company, and he's a lawyer, and he was in venture capital and private equity, and super successful guy. And he said, I only take on choice people that I really believe in, that I think are actually going to do the work. So we'll see how you do in the early going, basically. And dude, he told me to do shit, and like I did it the second he told me to do it. Kind of like you, right? Like I told you to start a podcast, you did it that second. He would tell me like, go read a book, listen to this podcast, and create a business plan. And by the end of the day, I would have read half of the book, listened to the podcast, and already created the business plan. And then I'd send it to him, and he'd be like, this motherfucker is on it. And so by the fact that I was so bought in and I took action so voraciously every single time he gave me a recommendation, he was like, I'm going to continue to work with you. And in the early going, I wasn't like progressing like crazy. There was probably 4 or 5 months of, I was still broke. I was still trying to change my mind. I was still selling cars, and I had my big breakthrough where I met a woman who I sold a car to, who wanted to start a financial technologies company. She knew my background in finance and my skill set, and said, hey, let's partner together in this company and move forward. And
How did you meet her?
I sold her a car. Exactly what I thought was going to happen, right? I sold her a Rover. She says, I just moved here from LA. I bought a house in Fort Lauderdale. And you have honestly been the most professional and unbelievable salesperson I've ever met. And when I started telling her about my background in finance and financial advising and so forth, she was like, you're actually the exact person that I'm looking for to partner with to grow this company. I'm a back end ops person. I need a front facing, sales leader. And I was like, okay, great, let's run it. So we start this company. And with Steve's help, I negotiated my deal, negotiated my equity, understood how the business worked. He helped me every step along the way, and we started building this company. It was going great. And then COVID happened and the company fell apart because it was what we created was an app in which a consumer could log into and negotiate their bad debt. So if they defaulted on a credit card and they were 3 months past due, rather than MasterCard sending the debt to a collection agency, they could log into this app and say, hey, MasterCard, I'm going to negotiate without talking to a collection agent, negotiate my debt and get on a payment plan. And then we integrated this with Mint, the credit reporting app. And so we had something legit here, And I had a buddy at MasterCard that was like, we had met with him multiple times and they were very interested in buying us, even before we had substantial revenue. And then when COVID happened, the government said, we forgive all loan interest. Nobody has to pay their loans back for 3 months. And so my buddy called me, he's like, hey, we can't use this because no one has to pay their loans back. And we don't know when that's going to happen. So let's put a pause on this. And at that time, I was bleeding money. I had put all the money that I had saved into this, and I was in a position where the company ended up crumbling. And so, dude, here I was again, the beginning of COVID, completely lost. Like, I don't really like finance. I don't want to sell cars. I don't know what I want to do. And my mentor was like, all right, it's time to really dig in. We're going to look at your skills, your experience, your interests, your purpose. You're going to start to journal. You're going to get really, more specific with your prayers, and you're going to meditate specifically on what it is you're supposed to do next. And for 2 months, every single day, I did these practices. And what I realized was I wanted to be in medicine, but not traditional medicine. I wanted to be in some form of preventative medicine because I had beat my own autoimmune disorder through nutrition and some functional medicine tactics. Long story short, I got introduced to a guy who ran a functional medicine company, and my buddy says, hey, look, this guy doesn't know how to scale the company. You should go up and talk to him. You'd be a good sales and marketing fit for him. So I go up there. I have a conversation with him. He says, what do you know about medicine? I said, nothing. He said, what do you know about sales and marketing? I said, everything I know to scale your company. And by the way, I read an article this morning in the Wall Street Journal that said that they're relaxing telemedicine laws and that we can probably scale your company if we do telemed. How much telemed are you doing? And he said about 25%, but I don't know how to get leads. I don't know how to grow this sales and marketing. I was like, bro, I got you. I promise you. The guy took a chance on me. He was like, look, you can be a sales guy for a couple months, and then I'll move you up to sales manager, and we'll see how you do. And I said, I'm not going to be a sales guy for a couple months. I'm just telling you, it's not the position I'm in my life right now. I'm capable of much more. And he said, we'll see how you do. Within 3 weeks, I had outperformed everyone. I was already showing myself and my leadership skills, and he said, all right, we'll bump you up to sales manager. This is when I really dug in. I had this opportunity to be a sales manager, and every single day I would call Steve and just be like, hey man, I need some help and guidance. Like, how do I create structures, incentive packages? How do I manage salespeople? And he gave me all these recommendations, and every single night for 5 hours, I would go home and I would just listen to podcasts, YouTubes, books, everything I could. I would research like how to manage a sales team more effectively. And that's what I started doing. I started 17, 18-hour days. I changed the culture of the company. I taught everyone how to meditate. I started doing personal development for all employees, right? I would be like, hey, how are your guys' habits? What's your health? What's your nutrition? What are you eating? I was such a crazy motherfucker. Imagine this. Young kid, no experience in medicine, coming in, becoming sales manager to all these brontosauruses, like Fred Flintstone, fixed mindset motherfuckers, telling them, untuck your shirts. No, you're not going to get micromanaged anymore. Relax. We're going to listen to Future and Yo Gotti, and I'm going to teach you guys how to meditate and make a shitload of money. Just believe me. And they were like, yeah, we'll see. And I was like, okay, listen. I'm going to teach you guys how to change your mind and make more money. I just need help from you. I want you guys to write down all the lists of the issues that you have right now currently, operationally, technologically, marketing, collateral, scripts, everything. And we're going to systematically go through and we're going to change these, and I'm going to help you guys. But you have to make me one promise. every single thing that is within your power of changing, you must promise me that if I make all these changes to the business and I go fight with the business owner and ask for more money and more marketing and more leads, that you guys will do everything to get better in your salesmanship. And they said, deal. And I said, okay, great. Now I'm going to teach you guys how to meditate. And they're like, what does this have to do with anything? I'm like, just believe me. So I started to teach all of them how to meditate in sales meetings. We would do 10 minutes of guided meditation every single morning. And all of a sudden they went from fixed-minded, Fred Flintstone motherfuckers to opening their minds and liking the meditation and telling me it was helping them at work. And all of a sudden they started closing more deals and we started growing. And I was just on fire. Everything that we did, we started growing. The business started expanding rapidly. And within like 4 months, I took over marketing. Through a lot of trial and error, I learned marketing and paid ads and SEO and, integrating sales and marketing, and we started growing more. And then I took over operations. And taking over operations is tough because when you're a sales guy, you're aggressive, you're really like a driver, A-type personality. Mm-hmm. The operational people are usually a little softer. They usually don't like the same type of feedback as a salesperson. And I would just butt heads with my operations department. I was just telling them like very candidly what I thought, and they were taking a lot of offense to it. And so I was constantly having to talk with the owners about like the way that I communicated with people. And this was the hardest thing for me to learn, was that not everybody communicates the same way. Not everybody wants feedback the same way. And some people are softer than others in their personality type. So I had to learn how to communicate with people that were not like myself. And over time, I learned how to do that and become a leader and really lead from the front and make changes without berating people, without degrading others within the company. And we just started growing like crazy. We grew from 4 million to 12 million in a year and a half. And this was possible because, yes, I worked 18-hour days. I was a complete psycho sponge, absorbed into learning medicine, sales, marketing, operations, management, communication, leadership, everything. But without this mentor, I would have never been able to learn this much this quickly.
How did you know that that was the right way to go about it when you were, teaching the guys how to meditate, teaching the guys to untuck their shirts, loosen up? Did you have previous experience?
No.
So how did you know?
That's because that's what I wanted, right? So I knew this. Okay, my first few sales meetings with them, I went in and said, okay, guys, I'm here to help you. What are the biggest challenges that you have? And they say, well, the leads suck. Marketing doesn't do anything. Mark, the owner, is constantly micromanaging us like crazy. Our incentive package is not that good. And we're always on edge. We feel like someone's gonna like babysit us here, And I'm like, okay, chill. I'm not going to babysit you at all. I'm not a micromanager. I don't give a fuck about that, because ultimately I'm going to design an incentive package that helps you make more money and the company make more money. And if you don't do what you got to do, I don't care. I'm just going to hire new salespeople. So no more micromanaging, okay? And also, guys, no one's going to breathe down your back. You don't have to be so worried about, is your shirt untucked? Is your belt tight? Do your shoes? I don't fucking care. When I tell you wear sneakers and untuck your shirt and Mark comes and asks you who told you to do that, you tell him, I did, Wade did, okay? That's what you let him know. And I started just taking the brunt of everything, right? And I would say, guys, Mark, sales are going up. I'm relaxing the culture. I'm not micromanaging people. I understand this is your company and I respect you, but you got to believe me. And if you don't believe me yet and you're not seeing all the results, ask the sales guys how I'm doing. Go, ask them. And he would go and he would ask them and they would be like, we love working for this guy. And so just after a very short amount of time, I was like, all right, meditation changed my mind in business. I'm going to deliver this to them. I'm going to help them, and I gave them this book by Carol Dweck called Growth Mindset, because this book changed my mind when I read it, and meditation changed my mind. And so I said, I'm going to teach them how to change their minds, whether they like it or not. I'm just going to see how it goes. So I didn't know it was the right thing, but my personal experience had been, this is the shit that worked for me. It's probably going to work for them. So that was it.
What is a growth mindset and what is a fixed mindset? Because you mentioned that a little bit earlier.
Yeah. Well, a fixed mindset is saying that wherever my mind sits today is the way of the world, right? Like a fixed mindset is I'm not going to be willing to learn or grow. I'm not open-minded to new concepts or challenging my ideas. You know, I look at the way the world is today and it's static. Whatever education I've had in the past has got me to this point, and that's all the education I'll ever have. My mindset is fixed. It's not going to change. A growth mindset says the exact opposite. I'm open to new thoughts. I'm open to new concepts. I'm going to consistently challenge my thought process and try to grow. And when someone tells me something, whether I like it or not, I'm going to view this as, how can I make changes in order to grow my mindset rather than stay fixed?
Main thing was, it sounds like along your journey, you were able to find and you were able to gain connections with a lot of people, and those connections ended up helping you out. So how did you make those connections? Like, how did you have a buddy at MasterCard, and then how did you have a buddy that was like a financial advisor? How did you have all these different connections? Because that, it seems like that's what helped you out the most, because you always knew somebody at the end of the day.
Yes, very true. Okay, my connection at MasterCard was another guy I sold a car to.
No way, what?
This guy was the biggest asshole ever when he was shopping for a car. I mean, this guy was such a prick. He came in and he would shop me over and over, and he would tell me other dealers that had better prices, and he made me try and find him the right cars and go back and forth with my management and get the best deal over and over and over. This guy wasted so much of my fucking time, and then he didn't end up buying a car. And then, like, 3 months later, he calls me and says, "Hey, bud, my wife hates the Escalade that we bought her. She needs the Rover. Let's do this." And I said, "Michael, price has gone up." You know, Khaled was just using the line of like, yesterday's price is not today's price. And that's what I told him. I said, "Listen, Michael, yesterday's price, not today's price. You should have bought when it was $1,300 a month. It's $1,500 a month now, motherfucker." You know, and I was nice to him about it. But I never gave up with this guy. Even though he shot me and he was an asshole, I was always nice to him. I never was like, "Yo, what the fuck is your problem, man?" Or I never lost it with him. I was just always like, I was straightforward with him and I was helpful, but I also was very candid with him. Like, I would tell him, there was times where we would get down to the end of his negotiations and I would be like, "Michael, you're splitting hairs between a couple dollars a month. I don't think that your time as a busy MasterCard executive is worth splitting these finite hairs. At some point, stop worrying about the minutia and let's just get your wife the car she wants." You know, and I would say it just like that. And he really liked, and I think in general people like that I'm kind, but I also really have a backbone and I don't give a fuck who they are. I'll tell them what I think. And I think he respected me after that, and that's why he called me back a couple months later and I sold him a car. And when I sold him the car, he just started asking me a lot of questions about my life. What do you do? Where are you from? Everything. And we started to get to know each other. And, you know, he ended up being a really cool guy, and we just stayed in touch. He always asked for some extra shit, and he always had questions. But by that point, I just liked the guy. You know, I just formed a little bit of a relationship with him, and I would always do whatever he needed. And dude, I didn't make shit on that deal. Bro, he grinded me down to nothing. I made nothing on that car, you know? But ultimately, we kept a relationship, and I left Rover, and he called me, and he was like, "Hey, I'm thinking about getting another car for my son. Are you still at Rover?" And I said, "No, actually, I've started a financial technologies company. Here's what I'm doing now." And he goes, "Oh, interesting. When do you want to get lunch? We should talk about this." And that was it. You know, it was just like, I've kept all my connections open. So like, I never put people in a position where they're like, "Wow, this guy," for the most part, like, "This guy's a fucking asshole. Like, I'm never going to talk to him again." You know, like, I try and keep everything open and also like deliver my value, make sure that they know kind of my skill and expertise. And I'm just straight up and straightforward with them. You know, I'm willing to challenge people. So I think
feel like
that's something. And then also, like, I really try and provide value and connect other people when I see a chance to connect them. Like whenever somebody has something they're going through, I try and make sure that I have somebody who can help them. So for example, like if one of my buddies is like, oh dude, I've been really sore recently, I've been having some back issues, I'll be like, yo, you stretch? And they're like, no. I'm like, you ever been stretched out by a stretch therapist? They're like, no. I'm like, oh dude, I know a girl that does it. You want me to connect you right now? Like, yeah, for sure. Boom. Immediately connected. And so I'm just like constantly, connecting people. And I think it's gotten to the point where if I think that somebody will be a good connection for someone else, I'll ask my friend or that person like, oh, do you know this person? And I'll see what they say. And I'll be like, yeah, you guys might benefit from meeting each other, maybe. And if they're into it and there's a good connection, I'll just connect them.
How do you become that likable guy in the workspace, in the business, in a corporation? How do you become that person that everybody likes? Because I feel like, at the business, everybody loved you. They liked, you were teaching them meditation. They were open to it. At the Land Rover business, the customers liked you. In your friend group, your big friend group, I feel like you're that guy that everybody just like loves being around. So how do you become that person?
I think not worrying about what other people think is the first and foremost. I'm incredibly authentic, and I have very weird tendencies and idiosyncrasies. Like there are certain things that I do that most people might think, wow, that's weird as fuck. Like people wouldn't want to be around you, but they do. They all do, because I just am who I am. Also, when I'm with them, I think I know when and how to deliver a message and not be too long-winded. A lot of times, people will be in social situations and they won't know when to cut it off. They won't recognize and be aware that other people have stopped listening, that they're no longer interested. I'm very self-aware of that, and I can see like, okay, let's back up a little bit and let's ask some questions. And also, I just genuinely like knowing about other people. Like I enjoy knowing what someone's doing, what their background is. And especially in my friend group, like there's so many successful people, I'm always asking them questions about things that they want to talk about. It's really the old like how to win friends and influence people, just consistently asking like, yo, what's going on with the business? I always ask, bro, like every single time I'm with Tom or Blake or really, really successful people or Brandon Carter, I'm like, yo, what's good? How's everything in business? What are you working on? What's working? What's new? Anything you're developing? I just want to know. I want to keep up with like what they're doing. And then you get them talking about themselves and like yourself, ask good questions. And you just become interesting by asking good questions.
So your questioning ability?
Yeah, I think questioning ability is really important. And then being able to like add little value here and there from experience, and just being quick about it, just like not being overly long-winded is helpful in any sort of social situation.
A big impact on you was your mentor, Steve. So how does somebody find a mentor like Steve? How does somebody find their own Steve? And how did they know if that's the right mentor for them?
Great question. I got lucky. God put Steve into my life. He doesn't have a formal program. He wasn't online. But I also hired Wes to teach me how to coach and how to get online, right? Steve didn't know how to create a coaching business on Instagram. That's not his specialty. And so when I hired Wes as a coach, Steve was like, this is the best thing you could do. If you're going to go into this, you need someone to teach you how to sell on Instagram, and that's not me. So in general, when you're looking for a mentor, it's like, hey, is the person that you've met, like now it's pretty easy online, right? You can start to like find a bunch of different people in the space and coaches, and I would just follow them and start to watch their content, and ask questions in their Q&As, maybe send them a message or a DM to see how they respond. And if you vibe with the person, with how they speak, with, are they authentic? Have they overcome problems that you're looking to solve? Are they successful? Then just jump in and just work with them, just hire them. There's really nothing to lose. You're going to have to spend some money, and you might hire some coaches that don't pan out and some that do. but just spend the money. Even if you hire them for a month, just jump in and see how it goes. So that would be my key. You're never going to know until you try.
So what advice would you give to people with addiction? What would you tell somebody who vapes, who drinks? What would be your advice to them?
Well, there's different levels of addiction, and there's different types of addiction, but ultimately all addiction centers in one's mind. So if I'm addicted to weed or drinking or vaping or porn, whatever it is, I have an issue with my mind, and I have to change my mind through first admitting that I need help. That's the first step in curing any addiction, is admitting, hey, I'm powerless over this thing. This vape stick or this weed, it has a hold on me, and I'm not capable of stopping on my own. Because if I was, I would have stopped, right? So the first thing is admitting powerlessness. I'm powerless. And the second thing is getting help. So for anybody that has an addiction, they should find somebody else who's overcome that same addiction or a similar addiction and ask them how they've, worked through this. For things that are drug and alcohol related, it's very easy. You just go to an AA meeting. Whether you think you're an addict or an alcoholic or not, if you have the question of am I, just go to an AA meeting. You don't have to talk to anyone. They're not going to ask you to share. You don't have to say your name. Just sit in the back. If you want to wear a hoodie and not be seen, do it. And just listen for the hour. And see if you relate to anything that's being said. And if you identify and say, hey, there's some validity here. Some of these things that people are saying, I felt this way and maybe I should jump in here, then do it. But if you get there and you're like, nah, I'm not ready yet or I don't want to, great, not much you can do. You have to be willing and ready to get rid of this addiction. So if you have the willingness, if you admit that you're powerless and you enlist help, that's really where the journey begins. Now, if it's something like smoking the vape or too much porn or something that's not maybe mood and mind altering like a drug or alcohol, you can actually join a program about mindset like my program or many other programs. And if the program is designed to help you with a daily set of habits with fitness, nutrition, certain mindset habits, and you just do those habits every single day, what happens is you start to reduce the vices. So you start to all of a sudden do the things that you don't want to do each morning, and then when it comes time to make the decision, do I smoke the puff bar or do I watch porn or not, you've already made the tough decisions each day and you're strengthening your mind. After a couple of weeks, the vape bar is gone. You're not even thinking about it. All you're thinking about is, did I do my daily non-negotiables and has that strengthened my mind each day? And then the addictions just start to peel off. It's crazy.
What are the top 3 vices or habits you think people have to cut out to become a millionaire and to become successful?
Well, definitely their poor eating habits. I know that sounds crazy, but can you become a millionaire and eat like shit? Sure. But is that going to be the best fuel for your mind and your body to accelerate your ability to be successful? Get healthy when it comes to your food choices. That'll drastically increase, overall. Other addictions are going to be, honestly, like porn is something that if it's really becoming an addiction, it's going to hold you back, right? Like porn or sex, like those things can really, hold you back quite a bit. And then look, like drugs and alcohol. I think it's really the biggest one. Is even if you're having like a couple beers or a couple of drinks or smoking a little joint, you're always going to be in a position of clouded mind. And in order to really work on your mind as much as humanly possible, to be as clear as possible, to be able to focus and move forward with business and growth, you don't want to be using drugs and alcohol. So there's just really no point. It's not even cool anymore. My friends who aren't even alcoholics and addicts, they hardly drink. They hardly ever do any of this stuff. It's not cool. There's no point. It's not helping you move forward and be a millionaire.
I feel like a lot of people would fall back on I need that stuff because I need it to calm me down. So how do you get rid of anxiety and how do you get rid of overthinking without that stuff?
Yeah, that's exactly why I use drugs and alcohol my whole life. Because my mind moves very quickly, which sparks a lot of anxiety, and I would always feel anxious. And so I thought that the easiest way to eliminate my anxiety was to smoke weed and eat Xanax. So that's what I did for 10 years. Really, we just have to be okay with being uncomfortable for a period of time and work on our mind to reduce our anxiety, our fear, any other emotion or mindset that we have that's not helping us. And so for me, it was, again, going back to those daily disciplines and those morning habits. If I wake up at the same time every day, pray, meditate, read, go on my walk and work out, my anxiety just diminished over time, right? Like meditation is what has helped me reduce my anxiety more than everything. And this is the age-old adage. Xanax versus meditation. And why do people choose Xanax? Because it has an immediate effect and it's easy. Whereas meditation takes longer and it's a practice. It's something that we have to do. And since we don't feel the results right away, people will just always go to the quick and easy solution. But you can achieve much better results by meditating for 10 minutes daily than you ever could with taking prescription Xanax. So it's just consistent habit and action, keeping the promises you make to yourself, and meditating, and exercise. Like those are the keys to actually changing your mindset and reducing some of the anxiety and worry.
How do you create a good relationship with yourself to the point where you can be content with who you are?
It's as simple as defining a set of daily non-negotiables, things that you do each day, and never, ever missing on them. If you set out to have 5 habits each morning and you wake up and you do them and you never, ever miss, you start to build confidence in yourself. Every time you miss, you start to lose confidence in yourself. You start to lose self-esteem. You're actually treating yourself poorly. You wouldn't treat a friend like that. I wouldn't say to you, hey man, let's get on a podcast at 2 o'clock and no call, no show. You'd be like, what the fuck, man? What is this? And then if I did it a second time, you'd be like, oh man, like I'm completely losing confidence in this guy altogether. I wouldn't do that to you. Why would I do that to myself? Why would I say I'm going to work out tomorrow and then not go? We just have to look at the relationship that we have with ourselves and make promises and stick to exactly what we say we're going to do. That will help us eliminate all that.
How do you get rid of that analysis paralysis? Because I feel like that's what holds a lot of people back. So like they're overanalyzing, they're overthinking.
I think also like having this daily set of habits will strengthen your mindset and reduce the analysis paralysis. Because if you wake up each day and you're making different decisions about should I work out, should I eat healthy, should I do this, should I do that, and you don't have like a set routine, then you're going to question everything that you do. So if you question one thing, you'll question everything. Should I sign up for this program? Should I do this? Should I do that? But if you have a consistent set of habits and you always do them, then taking action becomes much easier because you've already taken action on all these other things that you know you should do. The other thing is you have to learn not to negotiate with your mind. Your mind is going to talk you out of things. It's going to project fear into the future. And when you meditate, you start to become aware of emotions that are clouding your judgment. And a lot of times we don't move forward or we have analysis paralysis because it's a fear-based projection of something into the future that's not even real. The real key is this. Analysis paralysis is based off of a projection into the future. Usually, we actually have no idea how our action is going to turn out. And whether we succeed or fail at the task that we're taking action on, we don't know what that's going to do for our mind and our future success. The failure may actually help us more than the success would. So we can't worry about the outcome of the situation. We just need to take the action knowing that, hey, if I have a growth mindset and I say, hey, I'm going to learn from this regardless of how it turns out, and also I'm going to learn more from my failures than from my successes, then you just got to jump in and take action all the time. Because the outcome doesn't matter. What I learn from the outcome is actually what matters.
People want to get connected with you and they want to learn all these different things, how to build a structure, how to build a solid morning routine, how to build a routine that works for them, and pretty much just compress that, curve to success. How can they find you? How can they get in contact with you? And like, what's your mentorship kind of look like?
Yeah, it's Wade Houston on Instagram. That's the easiest way to get a hold of me. And I have a couple different programs. I have, a group program, and we focus on mindset, fitness, nutrition, habits. And I have group calls every week. Group calls, we talk about everything. It's Q&A. And so I'll talk about a high level concept from how to structure a trust and break down your investment portfolio down to simple eating habits, So it's anything and everything in between. And then I have one-on-one mentorship where I work generally with professionals and business owners on structuring their offer, their companies, helping them grow and scale. And so those are my two programs, the one-on-one and the group.
So Wade Houston on Instagram, correct?
Yes, sir.
Pretty much the end of the podcast, but I do want to thank you. Wade's actually the reason why this podcast got started. He's the catalyst of it all. I was on a coaching call with him, and he recommended that I start a podcast, and now we're here today. So I just want to say thank you for that, man.
Of course, bro. Never stop, man. This is natural for you, brother. I'm really excited to seeing you continue to do this and to talk to some other people. So just keep growing, and we'll put you in front of other people 100%, dog.
Awesome. Thank you, man. Any last piece of advice for somebody who's, on the verge of going all in?
When you find somebody that you resonate with who has results in an area you would like to be successful in, don't question how, don't question why, just jump in. You never know how working with them will change your mind and your skills and ultimately your success. Just take action immediately and get to work.